The rain hammered against the kitchen window as Marcus Thompson stared at the empty chair. Across from him, the same chair where Sarah used to sit every morning, sipping her coffee and laughing at his terrible dad jokes. 8 years had passed since the Riverside Bridge collapse took her from him, took her from their daughter Emma, took her from a world that desperately needed more people like her. The official report had been clear: structural failure due to cost-cutting measures by Morrison Construction Corporation. 37 people died that Tuesday morning in October, including his wife, the woman who had taught him that love wasn't just a feeling, it was a choice you made every single day. Marcus had made that choice every day since, choosing to love Emma fiercely enough for two parents, choosing to forgive when hatred would have been easier, choosing to build a life from the rubble of his broken heart. At 42, he worked 2 jobs teaching high school mathematics during the day and driving for a rideshare company at night, not because he had to anymore, but because staying busy kept the ghosts at bay. Emma, now 16, had inherited her mother's compassion and her father's stubborn streak, volunteering at the local food bank and maintaining grades that would have made Sarah burst with pride. The doorbell rang at 9:47 p.m., cutting through the October chill that seemed to seep into their modest 2-bedroom apartment every year around this time. Marcus wasn't expecting anyone. Emma was upstairs finishing her college application essays, and his few friends knew better than to drop by unannounced during the anniversary week. He opened the door to find a man in an expensive suit, rain-soaked and trembling, though Marcus couldn't tell if it was from the cold or something else entirely. "Mr. Thompson?" The man's voice cracked slightly. "My name is David Morrison. I need to speak with you." Marcus's blood turned to ice. He knew that name, had seen it plastered across newspaper headlines and court documents for years. David Morrison, CEO of Morrison Construction, the man whose company's negligence had stolen Sarah from him, the man who had stood trial but walked free on technicalities, who had paid settlements but never faced real justice. Marcus's first instinct was to slam the door, to protect the peace he'd fought so hard to build. But something in Morrison's eyes, a desperation that mirrored his own from 8 years ago, made him pause. "What could you possibly want from me?" Marcus asked, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. Morrison's shoulders sagged. "My daughter. She's missing. The police think she's been taken, and I don't know where else to turn. I know I have no right to ask, but I need help, and you're the only person I can think of who might understand what it's like to lose someone you love." Marcus stared at this broken man on his doorstep, the man he'd spent years hating, the man whose face had haunted his dreams. "You want my help after what you did to my family. I killed your wife." Morrison's words came out as a whisper, but they hit Marcus like a physical blow. "Not with my hands, but with my greed, my corner cutting, my arrogance. I've lived with that knowledge every day for 8 years. I've watched you from afar, seen how you've raised your daughter alone, how you've built something beautiful from something terrible. I don't deserve your help, but my daughter, she doesn't deserve to pay for my sins." Emma appeared at the top of the stairs, drawn by the conversation. She looked between her father and the stranger, her intuition sharp as always. "Dad, is everything okay?" Marcus looked at his daughter, seeing Sarah's kindness reflected in her eyes, remembering the woman who had taught him that compassion wasn't about deserving. It was about choosing to be human when being human was the hardest thing in the world. "Come in," Marcus said, stepping aside. "You're soaked through." Morrison entered their humble home, his expensive suit dripping onto the worn carpet. Emma brought him a towel and a cup of hot coffee without being asked, her natural empathy overriding any confusion about who this man might be. As Morrison sat at their kitchen table, Sarah's table, Marcus felt the strangest sensation, as if time were folding in on itself. "Tell me about your daughter," Marcus said, settling into his chair across from Morrison. Morrison's hands shook as he pulled out his phone, showing them a picture of a girl around Emma's age, with dark hair and bright eyes. "Her name is Rachel. She's 17, a senior at Westfield Prep. She was supposed to come home from school today, but she never made it. Her car was found abandoned near the old industrial district. There was evidence of a struggle." Emma moved closer to look at the photo. "She's beautiful. She looks kind. She is," Morrison said, his voice breaking. "She volunteers at the animal shelter, wants to be a veterinarian. She's nothing like me. She's good, pure. She doesn't even know about the bridge, about what I did. I never told her because I was too much of a coward." Marcus studied Morrison's face, seeing genuine anguish there. "What makes you think I can help? I'm not a detective." You know the city like the back of your hand from your rideshare work. You know people. You know places the police might not think to look. And Morrison paused, struggling with his words. I saw what you did after the bridge collapse. Instead of suing us into oblivion, you started that support group for families of victims. Instead of seeking revenge, you chose healing. You're a better man than I am, Marcus Thompson. And I need that goodness right now. Marcus felt Emma's hand on his shoulder, a gentle reminder of the values they'd built their life on. Dad, we have to help her. Mom would want us to help her. The truth of his daughter's words hit Marcus like a revelation. Sarah had always believed that everyone deserved a second chance, that love was stronger than hate, that choosing compassion over revenge was the most courageous thing a person could do. She would have helped Rachel without hesitation, regardless of who her father was. Okay, Marcus said quietly, but we do this together, all of us. What followed was a night that would change all their lives. Marcus used his knowledge of the city's hidden corners, the places where troubled kids sometimes went to hide, or where dangerous people might take someone against their will. Emma used her social media connections to spread Rachel's picture among her classmates and friends. Morrison, for all his wealth and connections, proved surprisingly resourceful when it came to coordinating with private investigators and offering rewards for information. They found Rachel at 4:17 a.m. in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, held by a desperate ex-boyfriend who couldn't accept that she'd broken up with him. The reunion between father and daughter was raw and beautiful and heartbreaking all at once. Rachel collapsed into Morrison's arms, sobbing, while he whispered apologies and promises and words of love that Marcus recognized from his own midnight conversations with Emma after Sarah's death. As dawn broke over the city, they sat in the hospital waiting room while Rachel was checked over by doctors. She was physically unharmed but emotionally shaken, and the psychiatrist recommended she stay for observation. Morrison held his daughter's hand through the hospital bed rails, his expensive suit wrinkled and stained, his carefully maintained composure completely shattered. I have to tell you something, Morrison said to Rachel, his voice barely audible. About my company, about something terrible that happened 8 years ago. Rachel listened in silence as her father confessed his greatest failure, his voice breaking, as he told her about the bridge collapse, about the corners cut and the lives lost. When he finished, she looked across the room at Marcus and Emma, understanding dawning in her eyes. You're the man who lost his wife, she said to Marcus, and you helped save me anyway. Marcus nodded, feeling tears he didn't know he was holding back. Your father asked for help. How could I say no? But I ruined your life, Morrison said, the weight of his guilt evident in every word. No, Marcus replied, surprising himself with the certainty in his voice. You made a terrible mistake that had devastating consequences, but you didn't ruin my life. Emma and I built a good life. We chose to build a good life. That's what Sarah would have wanted. Rachel looked at her father with new eyes, seeing not just the successful CEO, but the broken man who had carried the weight of his failures. For 8 years, Dad, you need to make this right. All of it. Morrison nodded, fresh tears streaming down his face. I know. I've known for years, but I was too afraid, too proud. I thought money could fix everything, but it can't bring back the people I killed with my negligence. It's not about the money, Emma said softly. It's about doing better, being better. Over the following weeks, Morrison began the process of truly making amends. He established a foundation in Sarah's name, dedicated to infrastructure safety and supporting families affected by construction accidents. He testified before Congress about the need for stricter building codes and oversight. He liquidated personal assets to increase the settlements for victims' families, not because he was legally required to, but because it was the right thing to do. But perhaps most importantly, he began meeting regularly with the support group Marcus had created, facing the families of his victims not as a defendant or a checkbook, but as a human being seeking redemption. It was painful and awkward and necessary, and slowly, over time, some of those families began to see him not as a monster, but as a man who had made a terrible mistake and was genuinely trying to atone.